Hey, L kids, how are you doing today? Good morning. Today is another numeracy day, and if you can remember, last week we talked about weight, the measurement of weight, the instruments used in measuring weight, the addition and subtraction of weight, and what weight is in itself. Now, this particular week we are talking about time. Now we're talking about what time is, the instrument used in measuring time, the various kind of instrument, that is clocks, used in measuring time, and also we'll be looking at how to tell time. But first of all, today we'll be looking at description of time and the instrument, like as in clock, used in different kind of clocks used in measuring time. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today. And I hope you have watched the video in the link that was sent with this my lesson video. Now the video there was able to really describe to you what a clock is, a description of the clock, the hands, the short hand, the long hand, what they stand for, and we'll also be doing that today in our lesson. So sit back, relax, and be confident that you'll be gaining a lot today. So by the end of today, you'll be filled with much knowledge, and by the end of this week, you'll be filled with a whole lot of knowledge in terms of telling the time, so that when your parents tell you what's it by the time, you'll be able to say, oh daddy, mommy, this is it, the time is this, the time is this. So that's our aim for this week. So sit back, relax, and we'll start off from today by seeing the what time is, and the instrument, that is clock, the very kind of clocks that we have for measuring or telling the time. So sit back and see how we'll be entering into this lesson fully. Bye. Yes, kids, welcome back. Now, going into the lesson, like we said, we are looking into time measurement, and the objectives of the lesson of today will be that by the end of the lesson, you should be able to define time, you should be able to tell what time is, and you should be able to describe a clock. Then thirdly, you should be able to mention different types of clock that we have, and lastly, you should be able to state the relationship between minutes and hour. You've heard of those words before? Yes, you should be able to state the relationship between minutes and hour. Now, let's go into the lesson quickly because we have a lot to cover. Now, time. What is time? Time is anything that is measured with clock. Time is anything that is measured with a clock. Now, it is measured in seconds. You know that second that it counts like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's how seconds go. And minute, it is also measured in minutes. Time is also measured in minutes. Minute is when you count 60 of a second, like when the seconds go 1, 2, 3, 4 till 60. When it gets to 60, that is a minute. That is a minute in time. Then time is also measured in hours. Now that minute, a minute, when it's like 60 times of it, that is an hour. And days, it's also measured in days, like so there are 7 days in a week, and there are 365 days in a year. So but time is measured also in days, and it's also measured in years, because the year consists of 52 weeks and 12 months. So time is measured in years, and so on and so forth, like decades, centuries, and so on. Now that is time. Time is anything that is measured with a clock. Now let's now go into the next aspect of our lesson. Now, what do we have here? Let's look at what we have. We have different types of clock. Now, look at the clock above here. What does it say? It's a wall clock. That is the kind of clock that you see in your house, the wall of your houses. You understand? That is a wall clock. You can see the way it looks. It has two ends, one pointing in a direction and the other one pointing in a direction or another direction, and it has numbers all around it, or like marks all around it, and there are 12 in number. The marks round on the surface of it, there are 12 in number, and that clock is called a wall clock because it's hung on the wall. It's often hung on the wall or by the wall. Now, another type of clock that we have is the wristwatch. The wristwatch is a kind of clock that we put on our watch, on our wrist rather. It's called a wristwatch because it's a watch put on the wrist. I know you've seen many people putting that on. Yes, it's also a kind of clock. It's also used to measure time. You understand? So, let's go. Now, the next kind of clock that we have is table clock. This is a kind of clock that is small, it's portable, and it's like a lamp size sometimes. And you can put it by the bedside to wake you up if it has an alarm. When it's a particular time, it rings an alarm, or it might not have an alarm, but it's just used to be by your side for you to be able to see the time, what the time says. So table clock is placed on the table. That's why it's called a table clock. That is why it's called a table clock. Then we also have a digital clock. A digital clock is a kind of clock that does not have like numbers or marks, 12 of them round its surface. It's not round in shape, and it doesn't have two hands pointing at different parts of the surface of the clock. This digital clock is like a screen shape, like a rectangular shape, and it often has numbers, a number with two dots over one another and another number. The first number signifies the hour, then the other aspect signifies the minute, and for every 60 minutes then the hour increases from 1. If there's another 60 minutes of the minute, it turns to 00 instead of 60. Then the hour side becomes maybe 2, and it increases as so on and so forth in that way, in that manner. For every 60 seconds the hour changes, it increases by 1. So that is the digital clock. It's another way it shows its own time in numbers, and the numbers are separated in different sections, the hour section and the minute section, separated by the two dots above one another. So that is another type of clock. So those are the types of clock that we have. Now we want to look at description of a clock. Now the clock, which is not as the digital clock, now the other kind of clock that has the 12 numbers or the 12 marks or the numbers from 1 to 12 around its surface. Now every clock has two major hands. Every clock. So we'll call those kind of clock that has that 12 marks or number 1 to 12 around its surface, we can call them analog clock. They are the other, like we'll say maybe the opposite of the digital clock that we talked about earlier. So now for every clock or another clock, it has two major ends. The shorter hand shows the hour, while the longer hand shows the minute. You know, on the digital clock, one side shows the hour, the other side shows the minutes. And when the minute gets to like maybe 59 and about 60, the 60 becomes 00 and the hour increases. Now, for the analog, the two ends, there is one long and there is one which is short. Now, the long hand is the hour hand, is the minute hand rather, while the short hand is the hour hand. You can see it on the diagram, it's shown there. You can see it. The short hand is indicating the hour, while the long hand it's indicating the minute. Now, let's read this. Note this. When the long hand goes around the clock once, when the longer hand goes round the clock once, like boom, 60 minutes have passed. That is when that long hand, which is the minute hand, goes round the clock. It goes slowly, you don't really notice it when it's moving. So when it goes round to that 12, it starts from 12 and it goes round it and gets to 12, that means 60 minutes has passed. And by that time, it is equal to 1 hour. And you should notice this at that time. If you can notice on your clock, when that minute hand, let's maybe try to watch at home. As you are at home now, try to watch when the minute hand is on 12. Now be patient and wait for it till it gets to 12. But when it's at that 12, at that first instance, notice where the short hand is. The short hand will be pointing at a particular number, and that is the hour of the day that we are at that time. Now, when it points to that hour, now be patient and watch when the minute hand goes round the clock till it gets to that 12 back where it came from. Now notice the hour hand, that it is short hand. The short hand would have moved from the number it was before to a higher number by 1. Let's say it's on 4 now. If the minute hand goes round from that 12 and gets to 12 again in a way you don't notice, but you just keep observing the way it changes, and it gets to 12 again, by that time you would have noticed that the short hand, which is the hour hand pointing to the 4, would have moved to 5. That is, it takes the minute hand to go round the clock once from where it came back to where it came. Then the hour hand would have moved one place by 1 in increase. So that shows us that 60 minutes has passed when the minute hand, which is longer hand, goes round the clock once. Then you see the hour would have increased by 1. The short hand would have increased. We can therefore say that 60 minutes is equal to 1 hour. 60 minutes is equal to 1 hour. That is one thing the clock even teaches us, and that is the fact. For every 60 minutes, that is 1 hour. For every 60 minutes, that is 1 hour. So that's something you should take note of. Take note of that. Now, let's now go into our quiz to learn all what we have, to do like a review of all what we have been learning now through these questions. Now, clock is anything that is measured with time. Is that true or false? Clock is anything that is measured with time. Is that true or false? That is false. Yes, is a kind of puzzling question and twisted in the opposite. Now, time is actually what is measured by a clock. Time is what is measured by a clock. Remember, we said it earlier. Time is measured by a clock. Clock is the thing, the instrument used to measure time. So clock is not measured with time. Time is measured with a clock. So you should know that. Then another thing is the short hand of a clock shows the minute while the long hand shows the hour. The short hand of a clock shows the minute while the long hand shows the hour. Is that true or false? Is the short hand showing the minute while the longer hand showing the hour? That is false. The short hand actually shows the hour of the day while the long hand shows the minute of the hour. So the short hand shows the hour while the long hand shows the minute. Now the next quiz is 60 minutes make 1 hour. 60 minutes make 1 hour. Is that true or false? Does 60 minutes make 1 hour? That is true. Remember what we said. When the long hand, which is the minute hand, goes round the clock once, you will notice that the short hand, which is pointing at a particular number at first, moves, would have moved from that hour it was by 1 to the next hour. Let's say it was pointing to 5 before. By the time the minute hand goes round in a complete cycle, the hour hand would have been pointing to maybe 6. It is a fact, and that's how it happens, because 60 minutes make 1 hour. So with this lesson, I hope you've been able to understand what time is, and to understand that clock is an instrument used to measure time, and we've been able to understand how the way the time looks like, and also the different kinds of clock that we've been able to see how the clock looks like, and we know that we have this around us, and we've also been able to know the different types of clocks that we have. So I'll be giving you some assessment questions to try to attempt them without delay, and we'll catch up from there henceforth. So thank you for listening. You are all awesome. Thumbs up to you all. Bye.